this last time we were together
about climate. She's a Trotskyite, those of you that don't know Nicole.
She keeps me honest. She owns a yoga studio, so guess what party she's in? No.
She's a wonderful person.
Yeah, he was flirting with her. Don't listen to him. So she was obviously raising the issue of climate change, and she was very proud of your answers. And you bring it up tonight, and I think I wasn't shy in giving you my campaign advice, which was to, embrace the green movement. Because it'll turn a war on terrorism into possibly something good. If it motivates us to become energy independent, that's a good thing. That being said, did you like Al Gore's movie? Or did you even see it?
I did not see it, but I will. I will see it sometime.
You will like it, or you'll see it?
No. Look, I respect Vice President Gore's commitment on this issue. I have the greatest respect for his commitment, and I intend, and I've had meetings with him about it. It's been a long time, but we have had meetings about it, and I'd be glad to work with him or anybody else. My friends, this is a classic example of the need for bipartisan approach, because I may bring a little more of a free market entrepreneurial approach to it, and he may bring another aspect of it. But unless we have this dialogue and engage, I don't see how we're going to effectively address the issue. So I admire the former vice president's work on this issue.
Do you think he'll jump into the race?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I really don't know.
As your vice president? No, just kidding.
The vice president only has two duties. One is to cast a tie-breaking vote in the case of a tie vote in the Senate, and the other is to inquire daily as the health of the president. So,
not a fun job. Okay, with that, Kim, do we have some people over here?
I have the first question from one of our members who wrote in to ask on immigration. America needs more educated immigrants like the engineers and entrepreneurs who contribute so much to the Valley's success. Why are we importing an underclass of millions of semi-literate and illiterate immigrants from Mexico? How can there be a shortage of unskilled labor at the same time that low-end wages have stagnated for decades when millions of unskilled Americans can't earn a living wage?
First of all, I think we need all sectors of our economy, need legal immigrants. There is, not far from here, Bill Jones will tell you, crops that are not going to be picked. In my home state of Arizona, down in Yuma, they're just not going to be. That's just a fact. And I'd be glad to provide you that substantiation. Now, high tech in Silicon Valley is vital to our future of our nation, but our food supply is too. So I'm not trying to place one or a higher priority over the other, but I would also allege that in the short term anyway, we do need these students to come into this country, many of whom will remain here and get educated at our better institutions. But in the long run, we should not be dependent on the bright young people from all over the world. We should be supplying them from our own school system. In the long term, I think No Child Left Behind was a good beginning. I think we got a long way to go to reform education in America. And I think that we've got to do everything we can to encourage students to enter those specialties and those areas of study that will most contribute to the innovation and technology that's the future of America. In interest of full disclosure, I have a daughter that just graduated from Columbia with a degree in art history. So I have to tell you that as part of it. But the fact is that I'm very proud that my daughter did graduate from Columbia. But the point is that we have to do a lot more, and one of them in the short term is the H-1B visas for high-skilled and technologically equipped workers to come to this country. But we also need temporary workers in other aspects of our economy as well, in my view. Yes, sir.
Okay, we got to go with who has the microphone.
Hi, Louis Traeger from Communications Daily. I wonder what you think about Senator Stevens' leadership on the Commerce Committee and his expertise on technology matters? And secondly, I wonder what you think the chairman of the FCC might have done differently.
Of the FCC?
What would you have preferred he might have done differently?
I think Senator Stevens is doing a fine job as chairman of the Commerce Committee. I'm sure that there are some small areas of differences that I would have with the FCC, but overall I think that they're doing a pretty good job. The fact that you don't read about them all the time is probably a testimony to the fact that the FCC is doing a pretty good job. Maybe if I had some criticism, I would have done whatever I could to get that spectrum back over from the hands of the broadcasters more quickly. I would have enforced that and made more spectrum available both for auction and for our first responders. I think that's one area where all of us, Congress and the FCC together, probably could have done a better job.
Hi, Eric Grover. You mentioned the threat of radical Islam. Islamist Iran is on the brink of obtaining nuclear weapons. Its president has said he would like to annihilate Israel and he'd like a world without the United States. It looks like President Bush is going to permit the Iranians to go nuclear. Isn't this a greater threat than the Earth's warming and cooling, which has been going on for millions of years without mankind and SUVs?
On the issue, Iran's continued efforts to acquire nuclear weapons is one of the greatest threats that we as a nation have faced or will face. Just as you pointed out, in case you missed it, and I know you know this, the Iranian stated national policy is the extinction of the state of Israel. And I don't worry so much about them developing a nuclear weapon and putting it on a missile, because that guarantees their extinction. What I most worry about is Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon and giving it to a terrorist organization with whom they have close ties, as we all know, including Hezbollah, including Hamas, and other terrorist organizations. So I think that we have been stymied in the United Nations Security Council by Russia and China. It's time we got together a league of democracies, countries that share our values, our ideals, our common philosophy, our common goals for the world, and our adherence to freedom and democracy, and those countries act together, ranging from Japan and Indonesia to France and Germany, et cetera, et cetera. And that organization, and I don't know how formal it has to be, this League of Democracies, could act with some effect against Iran in the form of economic sanctions, in terms of trade, in terms of finances, in banking and others. We could act with some effect. So it's pretty clear that especially the Russians are not going to be very helpful to us going through the United Nations Security Council. In fact, they basically blocked all most effective measures. So I would do that. I do believe. Look at the Iranian economy today. As you know, they've just had to ration, bizarrely, they've had to ration oil. As you know, they burned down a couple of gas stations. So the Iranian economy is fragile. And I think that we could make significant economic and other financial impacts. Suppose that we said no Iranian organization does any banking business in any part of the world that we are associated with. There are some significant measures that I think that we could take. And yes, at the end of the day, we cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. But, and by the way, the estimates vary as to when they would acquire these weapons. Some say as short as 2